Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Tuesday, February the 11th City Council meeting. I now call this meeting to order. I trust that your cell phones have all been placed on silence. And at this time, I'm going to ask Councilman Hester if he would lead us in the pledge and invocation if he so desires.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Bible teaches us Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Let us pray. O gracious, O wise, true, and living God, Lord, we thank you for this day, a day we've never seen before, we'll never see again. So we give thy name the praise, honor, and the glory. Lord, we pray that this meeting may be conducted decently in order. Yeah. For it is in the holy and righteous name of Jesus Christ I pray and ask it all. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Councilman. We have no special presentations this afternoon. Could I get a motion on the minutes? Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. With no objections, the minutes will stand as they have been recorded. A couple of program notes for this afternoon. We will not be taking a recess, and I will be stepping away from the chair after our vote on both budget items. So I'm going to be asking the vice chair if she could step in my place. All right, moving into this week's council agenda. We have no ordinances on final reading. And as I mentioned earlier, under finance, we have a couple of budget amendments, one to the general operating budget, and one to the capital budget. Any questions or comments on either one of these? Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Related to these two items, I do want to express again my appreciation for the GFOA report. That report allowed us to do a risk-based analysis and stress test of our reserve requirements for the general fund. And I believe that this was a very important step for us to take as a council to really look intentionally at what kind of risk might the city of Chattanooga face in the future, whether that's a recession or a natural disaster or something completely unknown, and to identify what is a healthy balance of risk avoidance and also investment. So to that point, before we begin preparing to vote on this amendment, I'd like to state for the record that let's get somebody from the administration, either from finance or Jermaine would be great, up here as I make a request, please. The GFOA report made some recommendations that I think are very wise. And so I would like to request that the administration within 80 days of today, which would be May 2nd, which will give us time to get through the election, get everybody sworn back in and have a functioning new council. Within 80 days, I would like the administration to evaluate our existing financial policies and create a draft version that includes a structurally balanced budget policy, a reserve floor and ceiling policy, a one-time revenue policy, and a volatile revenue policy. There were a handful of other policies that the GFOA report suggested we also consider, and I think those are some that the administration likely will consider as you all work. But to me, those four are the most important for this council to act on with some level of urgency. I am comfortable moving forward with a yes vote from District 2 on this, on these two amendments, because I recognize that we are within healthy thresholds. But I think as we consider what the future of our city is, we will be doing well by the people of Chattanooga if we set some very clear policies in place. So thank you. That is all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. All right, moving down into planning items that we covered last week in planning and zoning. Thank you, Councilman Ledford. Are there any new developments that we need to be made aware of?
Mr. Chairman, none from the committee that I know of, but it's a new day, as Councilman Hester said.
Well, speaking of Councilman Hester, he gets his hand up.
Okay, on yesterday, I went out to, in the neighborhood for 8C, and we discussed about this development that's coming, and I think the developer's right that the neighborhood need to be educated on the development. There's some misunderstanding on it, but he's offered to extend the olive branch to them for a few meetings with them. So I want to extend this out to March the 11th.
Okay, so you'll be asking for a deferral on 8C?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to ask Madam Vice Chair,
Zero
should
nine-
make that note.
093,
Huh?
0193.
0193, that's correct. Okay. Madam Vice Chair.
Because I will be chairing at this time, I won't be able to make a motion on item D. This is case 2025-005. So Chairman Ledford, as chairman of our zoning and development, I would like to ask you, please, to move to approve the alternate version of this case. There are some conditions that have been added to limit some of the light industrial uses that will keep this property, meet the need of the applicant, but also protect the quiet enjoyment of the neighborhood in the foreseeable future should the project change.
Are the conditions embedded in the alternate version?
The conditions are all embedded in the alternate version. Yep, legal helped us out, and so did RTA. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other lights under planning, we'll move into resolutions. Council, if you would look down through resolutions, we did cover Parks and Public Works wastewater last week. Any questions or comments concerning any of these? Councilwoman Burrs.
Yes, Chair, I did have a comment about planning, sorry, E 2025004. Just wanted to say that I met with the developer and the builder today, and they've done a really nice job of the first two phases of this project and have a great relationship with the neighborhood, so I will be moving to approve that.
Okay, very good. Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chairman, on that item 0004, is the applicant okay with the conditions? Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for
We've got an
Thank you,
affirmative.
Council. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Okay. All right, now are we ready to go to resolutions? All right. Anything under our resolutions this afternoon that needs to be brought to the council's attention? Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chairman, on item A, I just wanted to know if Mr. Chapman was in the room. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that should conclude this week. I think, Mr. Attorney, during committee report, you will have an announcement that you need to make about a settlement.
Correct, sir. Yes.
All right. Madam Vice Chair, if you would call on the attorney when we get to committee reports. All right, moving to next week's proposed agenda on our February the 18th. All of our items on first read this week will be final read next week. Moving to ordinances on first read for next week. We do have one item under planning. Any questions or comments concerning the one item on planning for next week? That is the item that was tabled back on 128. Okay, moving into resolutions. We do have one resolution from our council office for a second administrative hearing officer. Any questions or comments concerning that? All right. Under economic development and the mayor's office, we do have parks and outdoors and public works for next week. Any questions or comments concerning any of these resolutions for next week? All right. Seeing none, we'll move into our purchase questions this afternoon. If you'll look, I think we have 3 purchase items on the agenda. Any questions or comments concerning any of our purchase items? All right. Moving into future considerations. Anything under future considerations that needs to be brought to the council's office, to council's attention at this time? All right. I'm not seeing any. Chief, I thought, I did, so we have, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong week. Let me get on the right week. I think that'll probably explain a lot. We do have on committees this afternoon, we do have a public safety committee, and then we will have an economic development committee. In the absence of Councilwoman Coonrod, I will just chair that committee as well. So at this time, there's no other items that needs to be brought before the council. I will turn it over to public safety and Councilwoman Dotley.
Hey, Phil. Good. All right, we call our Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Can I get approval on the minutes? So moved. Second. All right, minutes stand without objection. All right, so we have 2 presentations today. We have one from the administration regarding the Humane Society, and then we'll also have an update from Chief Chambers about his first 100 days. So we'll do the Humane Society first. So who from the administration is doing that?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. So today we have Mr. Jim Kennedy from the Humane Society. He is the chairman of the board for the Humane Society, who will be sort of leading the presentation today.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Madam Chairman, members of the council, my name is Jim Kennedy. I am currently the volunteer board president for the Humane Society, Humane Educational Society. I thank you for the opportunity to present to you all this afternoon. On behalf of HES, which is what I will refer to from now on in the interest of time, I'm requesting the council's support in resolving a property tax issue that arose due to a clerical oversight on our behalf, resulting in a delinquency that eventually totaled more than $500,000. While no explanation relieves HES of the responsibility for this oversight, it may be worth noting that it happened while the organization was relocating its operations from the abysmal headquarters in Highland Park to the new shelter on Randolph Circle during the fog of COVID. HES was also navigating the nightmare of 3 executive directors in 2 years, not counting the interim who stepped into those breaches. All of that on top of the flawed assumption that because HES had been tax exempt in the past, it would be tax exempt in the future. Regardless, early last year, HES received a delinquent property tax bill from the city of Chattanooga in the amount of $63,771. We were surprised to receive that since we had been tax exempt at Highland Park and, according to our staff, had not received a tax bill from either the city or county since then. Consequently, we believe the tax would be forgiven once the exemption was explained, and we went about exploring how to get that done. It was during that forensic search that we discovered there was an additional $470,000 on the books for city and county property taxes dating back to 2021, when the Foy Center opened on Randolph Circle. We immediately got in touch with the offices of the county treasurer, the tax assessor, the city treasurer, the state controller, the chancery court, and both mayors. But while there is unanimity and was unanimity that HES should be exempt from the property taxes, no one seemed to have the power to forgive these assessments retroactively. We continued to work with the county and eventually found a path forward that entailed our writing a check to the county trustee in the amount of the taxes owed, and then receiving a payment in return from the county for the same amount. The tax ledger was balanced. The HES was not out more than $250,000 for taxes that arguably should not have been assessed in the first place. It simply does not seem reasonable that an organization that was tax exempt for as long as property taxes existed in its previous location should suddenly lose that exemption because we failed to submit the appropriate paperwork, especially when we have applied for and received our tax exemption from the state beginning in 2023. Beyond that, having to pay more than $270,000 would deliver a crippling blow to an organization that, as you may know, is already trying to navigate a very serious financial situation. Therefore, we respectfully request that the city consider a similar resolution to balance your tax ledger and relieve us of a very serious, but we feel undue, financial burden. I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Kennedy. And council, the reason why it's coming to us in public safety is because animal services falls under public safety. Thank you so much, Chairman Henderson, for this committee. So with that, I do have a question by Chairman Henderson, and then I have a couple myself. Okay?
So, Mr. Attorney, so.
Yes.
Well, and I guess I need some clarification too. You're saying there's $500,000 worth of property tax, but on the property tax bill, I think there's also a stormwater fee on that property tax bill as well, correct?
And we understand that we.
Does this $500,000 include the stormwater fee, or is it, I mean,
The
like,
535 does include stormwater fees that we understand we are responsible for, regardless of this outcome.
so you'll be paying for the stormwater tax
Yes.
portion of it? And Mr. Attorney, legally, and I guess this is somewhat precedent setting, I guess. I don't know of a time that we've done anything like this. Does this present any legal problems?
Well, there is a statutory provision under state law that says that you cannot forgive or avoid taxes in that regard that are outstanding. In this case, there would be the payment of taxes, as I understood initially, and then an appropriation that it would be back to this entity for the services they do if y'all are agreeable. But there is no provision under state law for the avoidance or forgiveness of taxes, to my knowledge.
But for them making the payment and then us, well, reimburse is probably the wrong word.
No, sir,
because
wouldn't
we're
be
not-
reimbursed.
We will not be reimbursing them.
No, sir. You'd be appropriating funds to that nonprofit.
We're making a
entity.
donation
Yes, sir.
to them. Mr. Kenny, I guess my other question is, and I think listening to what, some of what you said, has there been any consideration or talk of consolidating the two animal centers?
That topic inevitably comes up, and I would tell you that in terms of formal conversations about merging McCamey and the Humane Society, those have not taken place. I was asked that question by representatives from the mayor's office if we would be open to that conversation, and I said, absolutely. We are open to any discussion that will lead to of a higher quality or as high a quality of delivery of services on animal control and care as the city and county are receiving now. So although those have not happened yet, if there is interest in engaging in those conversations, we'd be happy to participate.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much. Madam Vice Chair Hill.
Thank you. Jim, thank you for your leadership in our community for specifically with the Humane Society, but you've been a strong leader of many organizations as a volunteer over the years and had a important impact. And to be a chair in the midst of a storm is something that nobody really wants to sign up for, right? But you drew the short straw. When I learned of this issue and the potential negative impact, particularly in the county because HES provides county services, it had a too big to fail feeling. That feeling of, oh no, what will happen in our community if we don't have a certain organization? And that leads me to think that we need to consider as a city and a county where we fit in the oversight conversation. And so I know I broached the idea to you about having an appointed member of the board from the city and from the county, that each mayor would appoint a member of the board so that we could best understand the makeup of the Humane Educational Society Board and fill the gaps that might exist as it relates to finance, legal, whatever the gap in that season might be. And certainly an organization in turmoil with as many changes in executive directors, that board becomes just vital, as you well know. Where has that conversation gone with the two administrations and the possibility of appointing board members?
We have already made the commitment to the county.
Okay.
We would be happy to place a representative of the commission, their choice, on the board for that oversight. The question becomes a little stickier, I think probably for the county as well, with city oversight when in fact, other than the issue at hand, we do not receive funding for our services from the city. So whether or not that would be appropriate representation or not, I think is something that would have to be discussed.
That's a fair point. That makes a lot of sense. And then to Chairman Henderson's question about the merger, that would change that conversation were that merger to occur. Okay, that gives me a lot to think about. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, hey, Jim, how are you? Good to see you again. Thank you for your leadership on this. Those volunteer positions are tough sometimes. My question, though, is to, I think, Phil, and that is, would this, are we asking to have this placed on the agenda in the form of a resolution? Is that the next step?
It's a resolution, or if it's an appropriation of money, does that need to be an ordinance? That's the question.
That's my question.
Yes, sir.
How this would look. Madam Chair, do you know if we are looking for a nod of yes or no in this committee meeting?
Yes, that's what I was going to get to that.
And forgive me if I've gotten ahead of you.
Oh, that's fine. Yes.
Okay, so, thank you. That's really all my questions at this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Councilman Ledford. Mr. Kennedy, could you give us the exact amount for the record?
Alas, I do not know that because I imagine there has been some fees applied since the last time. I know that it was originally, I can give you that number.
That's all right. Our attorney, who is so awesome, just
He's
gave me
got
that down to the cents.
Perfect.
$268,190.87 is the total amount. So council, you hear the amount. And how this would work is they would pay, you all would pay the $268,190.87. We would then in turn appropriate that same amount back to your organization. All right. So council, just I guess a couple head nods. Is this okay to move forward with or? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Chairman Henderson.
Maybe I wrote it down wrong, but I thought I understood you to say there was about $500,000 in taxes.
That was the total liability of the county and the city put together.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you good,
Yeah, I'm
Chairman?
good, thank
Okay.
you. I
All
just
right.
want to make sure
It was right.
it didn't change later.
All right, right. Okay, so the city portion of the taxes again is $268,190.87. Looking around at council, is everybody okay with this process of them paying us and then us appropriating that back out to them? All right. No objection. No objection. Any objections? I guess that's the question. All right. So Phil, can we move forward with that and placing that on the agenda? All right, Mr. Kennedy, you got our good this time. I'm in a good mood today.
Thank you,
All
Madam
right.
Chair. Thank you
right,
all.
thank you so-
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, next up here come one of my favorite guys, Chief Chambers coming up to give us an update from his 100 days. And again, council, thank you so much for that Humane Society action. I really appreciate it. Okay, Chief Chambers, and we have an agreement, 10 minutes or less.
Can that start in 5 minutes?
No. You go right ahead.
I'm kidding. I was going to wait on, looks like it may be up. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Well, first, good afternoon, and thank you all so much for this opportunity. I just wanted to briefly go over what has transpired the last 100 days, and then what you guys can look forward to in the near future. As it has been and will continue to be, our mission is to keep our community safe. And our vision is to be respected and trusted by all segments of Chattanooga's diverse community. Along with that, we have continued priorities. The first is our culture. That was something that we all had discussed early on in my appointment, in that anytime you lead human beings, you're going to have adversity. And what I've committed to instilling is a culture of collaboration, cooperation, inclusivity, as well as the highest of standards and expectation. And I'm happy to report that we are heading in that direction. We have seen marked changes. I have received feedback from the officers and the supervisors, the frontline supervisors, as well as members of our community, that we are heading in that direction, that culture is shifting and changing in the direction that we would all hope it would be. I'm also happy to report that our fellow law enforcement community is also seeing that. Just last fall, we were able to bring back 2 members of the Chattanooga Police Department that had left to go to other agencies. And then just as late as this past Friday, had a phone conversation with another young man who is coming back. He resubmitted his application and is coming back from a local agency, coming back to us. So very happy to report that as that culture is shifting, that it's not just us internally that's seeing it, that externally it's being recognized as well. And that starts from leading by example, which starts with me, as well as my deputy chief. And we have made it unequivocally clear that every single one of us, from myself all the way down to the newest officer, will be held to the highest standards and to the same standards. We will meet our policies and we will abide by them with no exceptions. Recruiting is also a very high priority for us. It is no secret that has been a struggle for law enforcement nationwide, and we are meeting that challenge by continuously analyzing our process and how can we improve that. We are on track for a second consecutive 20-plus cadet academy. That hasn't been seen in a number of years. Also, what we looked at in trying to continue to improve that process is a need for a police recruit coordinator. So someone who is dedicated to handling the administrative processes to allow our sworn personnel the opportunities to get out in the community, to get out into the colleges, to do actual proactive recruiting, where they get bogged down a lot of times doing the administrative tasking of onboarding and background checks. So this individual will help with that. We're in the process of getting that position established, and then we will be recruiting and hiring for that position. Also, retention. And as you know, in the coming weeks, we'll be discussing budget. Compensation has been a hot topic around here for a number of years and will continue to be. Unfortunately, we're losing an additional member of our team to Tampa, Florida, as well as 2 more to Tennessee Highway Patrol at the end of this month. That continues to be a struggle for us, but we are committed to partnering with the mayor's office as well as you all to try and meet those standards and expectations and those challenges that come anytime we start talking compensation. And also committed to an investment in transformational leadership. What does that mean? What type of leader is a transformational leader? Well, that is a leader that the foundation of their leadership ethics and standards is based on empathy. It's based on being an inspirational leader. And what we're doing right now is we've already reached out to the National Command and Staff College. We're hosting Magnus training, so that's leadership training based on empathy for all lieutenants and above, as well as our professional staff. At the same time, we're going to be putting all of them through an EQI assessment, as well as a follow-up coaching session with a clinical psychologist. So EQI, that assessment is essentially the emotional intelligence version of an IQ test. And that will show us how we can fill in the gaps relative to human interaction to help make us more effective leaders. Additionally, we've partnered with the Law Enforcement Innovation Center, so we will be hosting our own advanced leadership course for sergeants. So lieutenants and above, as well as professional staff supervisors, are getting training, and so are our frontline supervisors. And I'm also very happy for Lieutenant David Young, who was selected to represent CPD in Cohort 4 of the University of Chicago's Police Leadership Academy. He will graduate there in May. Additionally, we're seeing finally the successful launch of our POW and the POW Foundation, so the Police Activities League, bringing it back to Chattanooga, and we have successfully established the 501c3 POW Foundation. There will be more information pushed out on that a little bit later. As we have the ability to accept donations, that information will be going public. The equipment procurement is in progress, and with hopes of the first community event to be this coming spring break. The Crisis Co-Responder Unit is also another unit that we seek to expand. We are in the process of hiring a new clinician, and then I'll be requesting for an additional clinician to be added to our budget this coming fiscal year. We're hoping to continue to grow that unit. We've seen the positive impact that can have in our communities, not just from the mental health aspect, but in mental health coupled with the unhoused community. One of the first things that I wanted to do was create a Chiefs Leadership Council, and that has been completed. We have representation from the officers, sergeants, as well as our professional staff and 2 members of our community that's part of my Leadership Council. And they have been instrumental in helping me make sure that I'm being inclusive in my decision-making process. Leadership assessment for all lieutenants and above, that was completed. That has actually provided me with a lot of good information. And then once I've been able to conclude my executive staff selection, I will have one-on-one sit-down meetings with each individual lieutenant and above that was assessed to go over what their individual results were. The reorganizing our structure, this is what it will look like in the near future. We're not quite there yet. The finalization of this will be predicated on me making my final selections for the executive staff. So this is in progress. For the executive selection, the deputy chief position has been filled by Deputy Chief Toby Hewitt. The 3 assistant chief positions is in progress currently, as well as the major of professional standards. The projected completion of that is going to be in April. Any questions?
All right, with 3 minutes to spare. All right, that's what I'm talking about. All right, we have a question from Councilman Hester.
Just an observation, just thank you for the high standards, high expectation. You know, we sat down, you said you have all these high standards, man, you're doing it. Thank you,
sir.
and congratulations to Lieutenant David Young. Appreciate
Yes,
you.
sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Hester. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, let me just say thank you to you and your staff. Your first 100 days has made a difference, I believe. One of the things that we have discussed quite a bit is the visibility of our Chattanooga Police Department. And I can report that in District 4, it's exactly what we're seeing is an increase in visibility. And I think that it helps. It helps with our community policing ideal, but it also lets folks know you're there. And I appreciate it. And the speed mechanical devices that you're placing, those are fantastic. Gentle reminder of what the speed limit is, because you can forget real easily as we're coming down East Brainerd Road in the morning. And I'm telling you, I see a difference. And I appreciate your efforts and really engaging with us. And congratulations, and I look forward to even more great work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you. Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, I've just been so impressed with what I've seen in this first 100 days. And I love the lead by example. I don't think we can ever expect anybody to follow us if we're not leading by example. And I know you are setting that standard. I've even heard that you've assisted on some traffic stops as the police chief. So I'm been in a couple of meetings with you so far that you've just handled great, been responsive to the community, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Chairman Henderson. And you know, I appreciate you very much, Chief Chambers. You've done a great job. And I love that leadership is at the forefront of what you're doing, as well as the mental, well-being of our officers. That is very important. So I appreciate you for taking care of our officers as they go out to protect and serve every day. So I appreciate you and thank you. I don't have any other questions. So thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you all. Thank you so much.
All right, and I will turn it back over to Chairman for Economic Development.
All right, in the absence of Councilwoman Coonrod, I will now call the Economic Development Committee to order. I have a motion on the minutes. All right, with no objections, the minutes will stand as they have been recorded. Good evening, Ms. Allen.
Good afternoon, Council. Sherita Allen, Senior Advisor for Economic and Workforce Development here at the city. This is my second stab at this, so thank you for having me back. And I'm not sure I want to follow Chief because I'm going to talk legislation. So what we have for you today is version 13 of our pilot policies. We did remove the delegation to the IDB as instructed by this council. And so I want to walk through the roughly, very quickly, 10 pages, kind of explain high level what the sections are, and then talk a little bit about some of the changes and additions that we made to these. So if you look at, obviously we're starting page 1, just the purpose. I mean, this is to drive economic development in the city of Chattanooga. This is a recruitment and expansion tool. It's part of our toolkit. It's what we use when we're competing with other locales to recruit companies in. But as we're looking to retain existing companies because they have options to expand other places, this is also a tool that we use with local companies to make sure they expand here when other municipalities and areas are trying to recruit them out. So again, sort of the purpose, it outlines the fact that while this is a City of Chattanooga incentive, it still has to have the IDB to be operational. So there's an IDB component to this. It is passed and approved through the city council, but the property goes into title during the time of the pilot. It goes into title and ownership of the Industrial Development Board. So you will see references to the IDB. While the delegation is not going to the IDB for approval, they still play a role in this. So again, first section, kind of the high level, this is the purpose and here are the key players that are involved. You'll notice there is a small section that talks about the Hamilton County government and the fact that the city cannot make any decisions on the Hamilton County participation piece, but it recognizes that Hamilton County may choose to participate in a pilot. So that's that reference there. Section 2, we talk about the, let's see, I'm not clicking here. Okay, there we go. Eligibility. So this is where we start to talk about key targeted industries. There are high-level state industries where the state is incentivizing projects all across the state. And then we have sort of region-specific incentives or targeted sectors. And so we have an Exhibit D, that will be at the end of this document that we are attaching to this legislation. Exhibit D highlights what those targeted sectors are in the state level, and then what those specific sectors are as it relates to City of Chattanooga. And again, pilots typically will fall within those sectors, recognizing there may be a case where a pilot will come in under a different sector. It's not on the list. It's a company that we're interested in recruiting or interested in expanding and retaining, and we would bring that to the board, recognizing it's outside of this sort of standard list that we have. And I do want to mention, these policies, when they were created with delegation to the IDB, we put very strict guardrails around it. And so recognizing we've removed that we've removed that delegation, but some of those restrictions are still in place. So you will see some anomalies, some projects that will come to this board that look outside of this policy, and it's because those were the ones that were going to come to you anyway. Okay, and so that's it. Section 2, we start to talk about sort of the overview of the structure of the pilot, how it works, how the conveyance to the IDB works, how the pilot payment works, how the economic development fees, all those other pieces. Talks about stormwater fees, limiting liability for the IDB, all the legal stuff in there, financing, ground leases, personal property. We have limits on personal property and adding personal property after the agreements have been signed. So again, lots of guardrails put in there. Section 6 talks a little bit about the inducement requirement. This is a but-for incentive. Just because a project is eligible doesn't mean it gets this incentive. It's discretionary, and there has to be a but-for in order for them to receive this incentive. Talks again about expansion of facilities. Again, we put some guardrails around there as it relates to future expansions that have to come back in different applications. They're not just sort of tag-alongs onto a previously approved project. And then terms, when we get to section 3, again, there will be another attachment to this. This is that matrix that we talked about where some of the council members had changes to the matrix. This is where we determine, is a project eligible based on jobs, capital investment, wages, targeted industry? Is it eligible, yes or no? And then if so, it's eligible under what criteria and what's the scoring on that? And then the next piece is, are there special considerations that would cause us to want to recommend additional length of term for a pilot? It might be a pilot that comes in that's at 8 years. Well, you know, if there's some special consideration, whether it's environmental or whether it's related to job training, whether it's a sector that we're kind of missing, that hole in the donut, it's something that we really need in our cluster of industries, we might give an extra point for that. That gives them additional length on the term of their pilot. So that piece is the matrix. And then we start to get into the next piece, which is the application. Obviously, we've had some questions about the application, so we've added some things asking about, have you in the previous 18 months had any layoffs or any staff reductions? Do you plan to have any in the future, yes or no? If yes, explain those to us. It doesn't mean you're not eligible. It means we want to know on the front end what's going on with the company. So we've added some qualifying questions in the application that we did not have before that we feel like will help us moving forward. And again, you know, there's a no obligation cost. Just because you're going through this pilot process doesn't mean a company's eligible or it's going to be awarded a pilot. So we make that pretty clear throughout this process. And then when we get to section 5, we start talking a little bit about post-closing monitoring, non-compliance, some of the reporting that will be required. And from there, let's see. We made a change to that one. Okay. And then section 6, we start talking a little bit about the payments, application fees, expenses, economic development payments, just so everyone's clear on the front end what fees are coming in, where those fees will land. Some of the fees will come into general fund. Some of the fees come into the Industrial Development Board. And so those are spelled out here. And then obviously conflict of interest standards, we start talking about or outlining some of the definitions so it's very clear. Applicant, application, economic development fee, what those things are. And then let me go into the exhibit. So this is a matrix that I discussed earlier. And again, if you look at the, okay, this is a version 7 matrix and we're on version 13. But so if we'll look at the first four columns, jobs, wages, investment, special factors, it just kind of outlines sort of the range of factors and what we're looking for. So again, that point system. And then these are the special factors in this gray chart where we start looking at the additional length of the term of a pilot and how we determine that. And so again, one of the examples, for instance, might be location. So you can get up to, a company would be eligible for up to 3 points based on their location. If it's a federally designated hub zone, empowerment zone, enterprise zone, that might be 1 point. If it comes in and it's looking at a brownfield site, whether it's remediated or they're going to, they might get 2 points. We have brownfields we'd like to see remediated here. And then 3 points is where we start looking at targeted local sites where we want to see development. And that would be looking in our districts and saying, I've got an abandoned manufacturing site and I'd like to see something come to it. A project that's looking for points might end up looking at that site or being directed to that site by the chamber. And so that's kind of how we're using that matrix to determine sort of the length of their pilot. And again, all of those are kind of spelled out. We work closely with a number of representatives from the community to help put together some of the qualifications in this matrix and look at the scoring on that. Application, again, this is where we took our application based on some of the questions that have come up as a result to some of the recent pilots. We modified the application and asked some different questions around brownfields. Have you had your phase 1 done? Again, environmental, looking at all of those. So this is the application. Obviously, the chamber would facilitate, as the city's designee, completing this application, but the city would have access to this at any point. So again, there was a question around storage of documents, and we would have all of this on hand. And that's kind of it. So the process is where we get to, these are the targeted industries we referenced before, and these are the Chattanooga-centric targeted industries, looking at manufacturing, professional services, future technology, recognizing that manufacturing piece is starting to be smaller and smaller for us because of the lack of M1 or manufacturing heavy industrial space. And we're looking more towards back office now and other smaller spaces. And then these are the statewide economic development recruitment industries. And then this is tiny, but this is our process. And so where there are some communities that have maybe a 6-step process, ours is a little longer. And it starts from everything from sort of the due diligence through the application process, through the approval process, through the post-award monitoring process. So that's kind of that flow chart and how that works. There are a number of players that are involved in this, and it's everything from the city of Chattanooga, it's Hamilton County, we've got county auditor that looks at pilots across the county, not just the city or not just the county. And then we're looking at the other piece where we have the chamber that has a role in this as well. And that is it, and I'm open to take questions. And I know we had several additions yesterday and we had several additions today. We did have some come in from ATM and Caleb that we incorporated, and then we had some from a couple of council members today.
Councilwoman Dolly.
Yes, hey Sharita. Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
updated policy. I just have a question about, I guess more construction or local workers. What is, I guess my question is, what are we going to do for like startup construction? As construction gets going, is there an incentive or extra points for those who recruit local workers?
We do have on the matrix a piece that has local construction hires where we award additional points, but we're asking them, and what would happen is the company would have to demonstrate that on their report that we get annually that they're meeting that goal.
Okay, so it's not anything upfront that they would do?
It's not upfront,
Okay.
it's not in their agreement, it's part of the reporting, we're asking them to provide that.
Okay.
So historically, we have not incentivized the construction jobs, and as a result, there's no model for us to follow for that.
Okay, all right. I may come back to that one, but thank you.
Not a problem.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sharita, thank you for the intense work on this. Like you said, we're in the 13 drafts, and I've been tracking this for quite some time, but with you specifically, along with the changes, and I really, let me say again, I'm very appreciative of our community partners who have lent in things that we might have missed in the mechanical setup of this, and I think that's to be commended. While the intent of this original legislation was probably in the delegation of authority to transactionable pilots, and I think that's what this is finally defining, if I'm not incorrect.
Correct.
Which is solidifying what we expect and putting in the parameters. Council did signal that we wanted to remain with the oversight, and I think that's obviously where we're at. But in the spirit of the intent regarding the parameters, I want to be cautious too, in that we don't, and maybe Charles can speak a little bit to this if he chooses. I don't want us to miss opportunities that the parameters do not address. Mm-hmm. So in a very changing and fast-paced world, although we have state target industries and we have defined them, I also want us to be very open to and not miss future economic opportunities that are beneficial to Chattanooga and the county. And I would say that how we put that in writing, I do not know, but how we talk about it now on the front end is also very important, because there might be an industry that, for example, as we talk in many different factors or industries coming through that might lend itself to something that would be beneficial for Chattanooga. So how have we thought about, I guess this isn't just, here's the blinders on, and that's great, and I am so happy to see that. Believe it or not, I have this map blown up on my wall about 5 feet, so I'm happy to see the standards, and I still would like to see us find a path for a streamlined process when we're talking about transactionable pilots that meet the but-for and meet the criteria that this does address. But I also don't want us to be so rigid that we're not taking on and lose our creativity and flexibility. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and thank you for those comments. These policies are restrictive. Our previous sort of method of operating was also restrictive. The number of steps is restricted. We lose companies that look at our process and say, you know what, it's easier over here. They're giving me 100% taxes, they abate school taxes. I'm looking here, it's a longer process. I've got more public hearings I need to attend. It's only a 30 to 35% tax incentive versus 100. So there are companies that don't knock on the door, and we recognize that. There are others that do, and we have to get creative, and those are the situations where we will bring them to you and we will say, this is a little outside of the policies. This might not be in the targeted sector locally, but it fits the state, and this is why we would want to see it. In those kind of situations, as staff and our city designee, the chamber, we would have to make the case bringing that to this council to say it's outside the norm, it's an anomaly, and this is why we want it, and this is how it fits either the cluster or it fits either a particular site. And we recognize that, and there's flexibility in here that allows us to do that.
Okay. And I think to fortify that is, I remember on Planning Commission years ago when the Bend came to us, and it came with a recommendation, believe it or not, to deny. And I saw the presentation by Victor Dover, and when I saw it, well, no, this is cutting edge. I think the quote in the paper was, this is a game changer. I just don't want us to miss opportunities like that moving forward because we're too restrictive. But I'm really excited to see us move forward with standards. A couple of questions, Mr. Chair, if I may. The application is aligned with the policies changes in the draft number 13 have been made.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then the other question I had was the matrix. Will that be updated on an annual basis or as reports come in from the federal government, state government?
To be determined, although we did have Vice Chair Hill ask us to make an addition today that basically says these policies will be examined and reviewed every 3 years to determine whether they are still, whether we need to make any tweaks to them. And so that language was added in here.
Very good. I think that was very wise, so thank you for that. Really, those are the questions that I have. I think Councilwoman Dotley had some questions that I'm very interested in. Maybe there's a follow-up to that because I've been tracking the hiring and the incentives to the public. And if you allow, I'll yield to you and see if we have a follow-up on that.
Good.
Okay.
You good, Councilman?
I'm good for right now. Thank you, sir.
Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. Sharita, thank you for being as open as you have been to all of the feedback. And I mean, I'm proud of this council and proud of our community for the engagement on this work, and proud of your staff and the chamber for what are getting toward and what we're going to accomplish. So I just have a nuts and bolts question. So draft 13, that is not the link on our current agenda because draft 13 just was born. It sounds like there may possibly be a draft 14 that will be, so what I'm thinking through, Mr. Attorney and Sharita, is the nuts and bolts of getting it on our agenda, the exact version that we will vote on next week. What's the process going to be for that? You and I had talked about a red line for us to be able to see where we had headed, and
Correct.
so how are we going to know that we've got it all? Is it going to be an alternative version? Is it going to be version 13?
It should be the version that I emailed just before we started.
Just before this meeting?
Those were the red lines. Those were the final red lines for
Okay.
today.
All right.
If
So as
you would,
long as Maria has those to get them on the agenda, that'll be fine.
254. I was already down here. I haven't seen the red lines. Thank you. Okay.
And that will
So
be,
that will be what will be on the agenda for us next week, Phil, is version 13.
Yes, I will ask Maria to make that
Fabulous.
change.
Okay. So we should all put our pens away for a little bit.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's
all
all.
right. Council, any other questions or comments for Ms. Allen? Councilman Ledford?
Mr. Chairman, if I may wrap it up. In the legislative process, we always have the ability to amend. So I want to say this is great work. This has pushed us, I think, as far as we're going to get. And I think that as we go along with time, and Madam Vice Chair, thank you for your 3-year review. I have a feeling we'll probably be looking at it even sooner, but I'm glad to see that we have that written in the language. The ability to amend as new information comes into light and practices, and of course hurdles that we see. It's always available at any time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Thank you.
All right, I think that takes care of all of our committees this afternoon. At this time, Madam Clerk, are you ready to proceed with our order of business? Okay, Council, thank you for pushing through without a recess this afternoon. At this time, we will now come to our order of business for the City Council. We do not have any ordinances on the final reading. That takes us to ordinances on first reading. Madam Clerk, 8A, please.
An ordinance to amend the operations budget, ordinance number 14118, known as the fiscal year 2024-2025 operations budget, to amend sections 5 and 5A so as to appropriate $29,907,500 from general fund reserves, of which $11,907,500 to various capital projects, increased contingency appropriation of $18 million for one-time payment to the Fire and Police Pension Fund to provide for reallocation of appropriations to the Department of Innovation, Delivery, and Performance following administrative decisions which have resulted in the dissolution of that department, to reallocate appropriation between certain departments, and to amend Section 70 due to administrative changes during fiscal year 2024-2025 to reallocate available appropriations for certain new or changed positions.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said last week when we held a public meeting to discuss this, and there was no public comment, I just want to reiterate again that in large goes to the amount of work put in by the administration to pull this item together. It is very detailed. There's a tremendous amount of work behind it. It goes to a great many things, not just to help keep our police and fire pensions solid, but there's a lot of other work that we're going to be putting out into the communities. And because of how well it was organized in the meetings and the information and frankly the transparency around it, we were able to get to this point
with clarity. And I give that credit to the finance team, Mandy primarily, Javed, Wesley, Stephen, and the entire finance team. Thank you for the amount of time that you put into it. It is more than we have had in the past, and it goes to show how well it works moving forward. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval.
Councilman Ledford?
Be happy to second that motion, sir.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Are there any other questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, we do need a roll call vote since this is a budget item.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Ledford? Yes. Councilman Hester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dotley? Councilwoman Knoll?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hill?
Yes.
Chair Henderson?
Yes,
I say yes.
and that motion does carry. Thank you, council. Thank you, administration. Now moving to 8B.
An ordinance to amend the capital budget ordinance number 14119, known as the fiscal year 2024-2025 capital budget, appropriating, authorizing, and allocating funds to the capital improvements budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025 to increase the capital budget by $11,907,500 from general fund reserves.
Councilman Smith, followed by Councilman Ledford.
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Wait a
Roll call, please.
roll call. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Knoll?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dotley? Councilwoman Burrs?
Yes.
Councilman Hester?
Yes.
Councilman Ledford? Yes. Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hill?
Yes.
Chair Henderson?
Yes,
8 yeses.
and that motion does carry. Council, at this time, I will step away from the chair and ask Madam Vice Chair to fill that chair.
All right, that takes us into the planning portion of our agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please read item C?
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 3854 Bonnie Oaks Drive from RN16 residential neighborhood zone to TRN3 traditional residential neighborhood zone.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is case 2024-0193. Is the applicant present? Do we have any opposition present? Councilman Hester, how would you like to
Yeah,
move?
this is what we spoke of earlier. I want to defer this to March the 9th.
Okay. Okay, council, we have a motion with a proper second to defer this item until March 11th, 2025. Forgot what you say. All in favor?
Aye.
It's different when you're in the seat, y'all. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Madam Clerk, item D.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 4306 North Access Road from R16 residential neighborhood zone to IL light industrial zone, subject to certain conditions.
This is in my district. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? Madam Chair, given the conversation we had during agenda session, I am going to move for approval, this being in your district.
The alternate version.
The alternate version, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
You want to read the conditions added or not?
No, I don't want to read the conditions. They're in the document, and we have them
All right,
agreed to in writing.
okay.
Madam Clerk, item E.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 6515 Hunt Drive from RN16 residential neighborhood zone to RN3 residential neighborhood zone, subject to certain conditions.
Thank you. This is case 2025-0004. Do we have an applicant present? We do. Do we have any opposition present? Councilwoman Burrs, how would you like to proceed?
Yes, I met with the applicant and the developer and the builder. Mr. Ingram, thank you for meeting with me, as well as the builder. Mr. Ingram lives in District 6, and I really appreciate all you're doing to develop some nice townhouses in the area. We appreciate that. The builder also is doing a great job. This is phase 3 of this project, and he's done a great job with the quality of the construction and the finishes. And he's also become a friend to a lot of the neighbors, so I appreciate that, to the point that I think he's employing a couple of people that live in the neighborhood. So please share that, my appreciation to him. We discussed briefly in the agenda setting that you're okay with the conditions that were set forth. Okay. The only one that I want to just mention that no excess on Hunt Drive, if you will just keep me posted on that, once you all get to the final approval process, I will be curious to see how that goes. But I appreciate everything you're doing in District 6 especially, and the builder seems passionate about what he's doing, and he's doing a nice job, so thank you. I move to approve.
Thank you. All right, council, we have a motion and a proper second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Item F.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 2619, 2621, and an unaddressed property in the 2600 block of Long Street from RN3 Residential Neighborhood Zone to TRN3 Traditional Residential Neighborhood Zone.
Okay, this is case 2025-0006. Do I have an applicant present? Do you have an applicant? Do we have any opposition present? You raised your hand again. Are you opposition and applicant?
No,
Oh, okay. Okay. Councilwoman Dotley, this is in your district. Would you like a presentation?
Oh, no, another great development in District 7, as they all are, so I just moved to approve on that one.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a second? Okay, council, we have a motion with a proper second. Do we have anybody have any comments? Looks like we're good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item G.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 2403 Glass Street from RN2 Residential Neighborhood Zone to CTMU Traditional Mixed Use Zone, subject to certain conditions.
This is case 2025-0014. Do we have an applicant present? Yes. Thank you. Do we have any opposition present? We have no opposition present. Councilwoman Coonrod is not here. Chairman Ledford, are you prepared to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question for the applicant. Are you aware of the conditions? Yes. Very good. Then move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Council, we have a motion and a proper second. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye as well.
So that is 2 opposed.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
let me get some clarity on this. Is this the property that was tabled?
No.
It's not?
Oh, it's not, okay.
This is not the one?
Case from last week.
No, I believe that's coming back on the agenda next week.
Okay, okay, let me make sure I'm good on this. Is this the property that is located in the middle of the neighborhood? Where it was several in opposition of?
We have no opposition present tonight, and the motion has passed, but with 2 noes. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else, Councilwoman?
Just trying to make sure it was the right property. That was it.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, item H.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, Chapter 38, the Chattanooga zoning order as adopted by ordinance number 14137 on July 23, 2024, to add additional definitions, add office as a permitted use in the RN3 residential neighborhood zone, and then various sections of regulations related to the Board of Zoning Appeals and the land use permitted table to make changes to the retail sales of alcohol.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are the first round of amendments that we had promised. Ms. Rennick, do we have any late additions or things we need to address since our committee meeting? Then I want to thank council for paying close attention, fulfilling the promises that we had made. We have more substantial zoning code amendments to follow coming up very soon. I may not be here, but I'll be watching. So with that, I will move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a proper second. Do we have any comments? Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving into resolutions. Madam Clerk, I'd like to take items A and B as a package.
Item A, a resolution confirming the appointment of Michael Chapman to the Head Start Governing Board for District 4 with the term beginning on February 12, 2025 and ending on February 11, 2027. Item B, a resolution authorizing the Family Justice Center to apply for and, if awarded, accept the FY25 OVW Justice for Families Grant Program funding from the U.S. Department of Justice for an amount not to exceed $600,000 and will pass through funds of an amount not to exceed $436,600 to the Family Visitation Center of Chattanooga to support their supervised visitation services in the court system, and funding will help to enhance and strengthen the support for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and child abuse within the court system.
Council, what is your preference?
Move to.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a proper second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's pass.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes, sorry, I thought you were still live from before.
That's okay.
I apologize.
Ms. Chapman, thank you for agreeing to serve on the Head Start Governing Board. We certainly appreciate your service. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Clerk, let's take items C through H under Parks, Public Works, and Wastewater as a package.
Item C, a resolution authorizing the 2024 annual inflation adjustment of the financial assurance for the City of Chattanooga landfill permit number SNL 33000035, phases 1 and 2 at Summit Landfill as required by the regulations of the Division of Solid Waste Management for an increase of $38,745.99 for a revised total amount of $1,463,741.66. Item D, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y24008-201 Washington Hills Center gym floor to Wilder Contracting LLC of Harrison, Tennessee in the amount of $111,246.23 with a contingency in the amount of $11,100 for a total amount of $122,346.23. Item E, a resolution to amend resolution number 32380 to read, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into a 4-year contract for the on-call blanket contract number E24020-401 for resident project representative RPR services with 1, Barge Design Services, 2, CTI Engineering Inc., 3, Concert Engineers LLC, 4, D. Martin and Partners LLC, 5, Labella Associates PC, 6, LJA Engineering LLC, 7 Reagan Smith Associates Inc., 8 Romo Kepper Call LLP, 9 Southern Environmental Technologies Inc., 10 Thompson Engineering, and 11 Volker Inc. in the services categories. Applied for professional services estimated at $2,250,000 annually. Item F, a resolution authorizing the appointment of Norman Smith as a special police officer unarmed for the City of Chattanooga Department of Public Works to perform duties expressly limited to the performance of duties in its position as a soil engineering specialist. Item G, a resolution authorizing the 2024 annual inflation adjustment of the financial assurance for the City of Chattanooga landfill, permit number SNL 3300000273, original at Birchwood landfill as required by the regulations of the Division of Solid Waste Management for a decrease of $25,119.09 for a revised total amount of $1,485,205.97. Item H, a resolution authorizing the 2024 annual inflation adjustment of the financial assurance for the City of Chattanooga landfill, permit number SNL 330000273, lateral expansion area 3 at Birchwood landfill as required by the regulations of the Division of Solid Waste Management for an increase of $345,021.64 for a revised total amount of $9,424,538.52.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Hester.
Move to approve.
Can I get a second? All right, we have a motion with a proper second. Council, do we have any comments or questions? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to purchases.
Good evening, council. I have 3 purchases recommended for approval this evening. The first one is for fleet. This is a one-time purchase of a mini excavator from Stowers Machinery in the amount of $148,255.40. This purchase is utilizing the State of Tennessee contract. Number 2 is for fleet. This is a one-time purchase of an excavator from Power Equipment in the amount of $253,000. This purchase is utilizing the Sourcewell contract. And number 3 is also for fleet. This is a one-time purchase of a trailer from Talbert Manufacturing in the amount of $74,895.22. This purchase is utilizing the Sourcewell contract.
Thank you very much. Council, how would you like to proceed?
Move approval. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a proper second. Any comments or questions before we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, brings us to committee reports. We'll go around the horn. Councilman Smith?
No report, Madam Chair.
Councilman Ledford?
No report, Madam Chair.
Councilman Hester?
No report.
Councilwoman Burrs?
No report.
Councilwoman Knoll?
No report.
Councilwoman Dotley?
Public safety did meet today. We talked about the Humane Society as well as a 100-day update from CPD.
Thank you. And in the absence of Chairman Henderson and Councilwoman Coonrod, I will make a report that the Economic Development Committee did meet today. We discussed pilot policy that will be voted on next week. It's on our agenda to be voted on next week. And our attorney has a settlement report to give.
Yes, would like to report that there has been a settlement of a claim of the city employee Stephen Brumlow, non-the-job injury settlement for $94,000, and need to read that into the record.
Thank you, sir. Okay, well, that brings us to recognition of persons wishing to address the council. Mr. Attorney, will you please read the rules? And if you wish to speak to the council tonight, go ahead and line up behind the podium.
Sure. At the end of each council business meeting, the chair will recognize members of the public who wish to address the council, and here's your rules. Each speaker wishing to address the council can only be recognized at the microphone up front for that purpose, can't have more than 3 minutes to speak, and you can address the council only upon matters within their legislative and quasi-judicial authority and not on matters which are not under their authority or regulated by other governmental bodies or agencies. Don't engage in vulgar or obscene language, nor use the floor to personally attack or personally denigrate others, and address your comments to the council as a whole, and not make comments directed towards individual council members. And lastly, do not engage in disorderly conduct or disrupting a public meeting which is prohibited under Tennessee law. And someone commits that offense if a person substantially obstructs or interferes with the meeting by physical action or verbal utterance with the intent to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting or gathering. Having stated those rules, please give your name and go ahead, sir.
Yes, my name is Patrick Cate, District 7. I'm here on behalf of the Chattanooga Area Central Labor Council. I just have a quick comment to make. It'll be actually very quick after hearing the report from the pilot. I'm speaking, I normally wouldn't speak. The elected leaders would speak because of the timing. They couldn't make it today, and the many, many other workers and union members who were here today had to leave. But I'm just here to acknowledge that many, many workers and members of the Labor Council actually showed up today to express their concern and their desire to have inclusion for local hire language. I'm delighted to hear that was included in the new program and the exceptional program that Mrs. Allen put together. And just lastly, the comment we want to make sure is that if we're going to have the inclusion of local hiring language with the points in the matrix and it's on the back end, we definitely want to make sure that there is strong accountability for making sure that that is followed through with both the employers that are receiving the pilot and general contractors that actually do the construction work. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kate. Any other persons wishing to address the council? Council seeing none, what is your preference? We are adjourned. Thank you all.